Hello, this is going to be a quick tutorial on how to add a new swim state. I've already pre-recorded this and I'm just going to do a voiceover. So right here I'm adding in an animation I made right before this that I'm going to use as the example, but you should be able to use a state machine or a blend space like I'm using for the other stuff in the animation blueprint, but just for this demonstration I'm going to use just an animation. So first thing you're going to want to do is go into the component. Um, Here I'm finding where the references are for the swim state. These are going to be what you need to sort of find your way around depending on what you're adding and when you want it to come into play and when you want it to turn off. It's going to vary from project to project probably, and depending on what you're adding. Um, so right here I'm adding, since I'm adding drowning, I don't want you to be able to get out of the drowning state if you lock your swimming, for example. So right here, this is just saying if I'm drowning, then don't continue with locking the swim state. Same with this. And you just want to you're gonna want to go through all the ones that say set swim state and check them and make sure that it makes sense to add this. And if you'd want it to prevent it from switching the swim state, or if you'd want it to switch to a different swim state, or and you'd want to be able to get out of water still if you're in that swim state. So you probably want to leave that as it is, so you can always go back to default once you get out of the water. Right here, this swim function runs every single trace, which happens like a few times a second. So you would want to make sure that you have it to ignore that, and you don't need to hook it up to that output since it's a function. That's the negation you'd want to leave probably. It's like basically going on land. You'd want it to switch back to your default state machine. And then I didn't add it to any of the trace events because those you'd want to set back to default probably once you get out of water. For this, like I said, it's gonna vary for different things probably, but for drowning, it makes sense to leave it as that. And then right here, I'm setting it up so that if you've been underwater for too long, it'll set drowning to true, and it'll switch your swim state to drowning. And then after that, you need a way to reset the swim state once you're not drowning anymore. So I'm gonna add a false right here. So if it checks, if it once it runs this function and checks, and it comes up, you haven't been underwater for too long, then it'll switch it to false, and it'll take over. The swim state will be allowed to switch back to whatever one the trace decides. But since drowning will no longer be true, it'll be able to use the other ones. Then right here I'm adding the pin. That way I could plug in the animation. You might want to plug in a blend space or a state machine here depending on what it is you're doing. Like I said, this was just a quick animation I made to display. And then I sped this up a little bit because it takes a minute to drown. And then once you've been under for too long, it'll switch to that swim state, and it'll reflect that on the animation graph using that switch. And when you can get out, it'll switch it back to your normal state. And that's pretty much it. I hope this helped.